Hello, everybody. Welcome back to today's episode of the Bikini and the Brain podcast. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Adam Bonilla from TeamElitePhysique.com. And we are going to freaking discuss a super exciting topic. And I know everyone wants to know about it. Everyone asks me questions about it all the time. Every single week. They want to know our secrets about peak week. Whoa.
Yes. So we're in peak week right now. We're in day, I mean, if you really want to count what we're doing for this peak week, we are in day...
We're on Tuesday before the show.
Yeah, Tuesday before the show.
Whatever that is.
But we've been getting ready for this peak week. So today's like the first carb load back, and we've been flattening out and depleting for a week, about 9 days or so, something like that.
Yeah, ever since I got back from Orlando, or Pittsburgh technically.
Yeah.
But yeah, ever since I got back. Yeah.
So we're going to be in like a 18-day or something peak kind of thing, 17-day peak. So kind of cool to go over it and go over the whys and the whats and whatnot, and how you guys can maybe apply it to your peak week. Mm-hmm. Now, as you guys know, I'm not a huge peak week guy where I'm like, hey, manipulate this, manipulate that, sodium. It's always, for me, it's the basics, the controllables, something so you can replicate that controllable end result. We're not going to be doing anything crazy like sodium manipulation, water manipulation. We're not going to cut any water, anything like that. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
So before we actually dive in to this topic, I just want to put up this disclaimer that no peak week is ever the same, really.
Yeah.
There's always little things that we do differently. I mean, we have some common themes, yes. We have some definitely do's, definitely don'ts, yes. But it's a case-by-case basis. Sometimes we come in and we're like, oh, we're not lean enough yet, and it's peak week, so we got to get there. Or other times we're like, oh, I'm already lean enough, we got to maintain. And then sometimes, oh, we're too lean, we got to, put on a little bit of fluff. So maybe not fluff, but fullness.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you might have discovered a video or a podcast previously, and maybe we did a few things differently on that peak week, but that peak week is not this peak week. So yeah, we're in this position now that we're kind of just maintaining from the last show. But yeah, I mean, I guess what makes this one unique is that I competed in Florida, and then I had a flight to Pittsburgh, and I got back on a Tuesday, right? So I was not working out for 6 days. And then there was that whole delayed flights, and I was eating airport snacks after the show, and this was less than 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, I was kind of a mess getting back here. But just goes to show you, I think you can definitely maintain even if you didn't work out for 6 days, and even if you did expose yourself to those airport snacks. I didn't have my food with me, so it was in my check-in, but I didn't know my flight was going to get delayed 5 times. So anyway, that's beside the point. I think for people going from show to show, or whether it be from week to week or every 2 weeks, I think a lot of people experience the rebound. If you want to briefly describe what a rebound is, and we can explain why I didn't get it.
So, just you guys are probably like, dang, she didn't work out for 6 days when she was 3 weeks out from a show. What the heck, So you guys know, the last 3 days going into the show, we didn't work out because it gets her, basically reduces her inflammation. Her body kind of recovers, and she always looks a little bit sharper when we take those 3 days off. And then she ended up going to Pittsburgh to you did a photo shoot with JM too? JM? In Pittsburgh, but then her flight was delayed for 1 day, a full day in the airport. Full day.
Miserable.
It was 3 a.m. when she finally got on a flight, right? It was
oh, I checked in a hotel at 4.
4 a.m.
Yeah. I was supposed to be there at 7 p.m. Actually, before 7 p.m. that day. The day before, I should say, technically.
Yeah. So and then the photo shoot was the next day, and so that's why it was 6 days. So anyway, that being said, the rebound more times than not happens from a rapid increase in sodium. That's usually what happens. And as I've talked before, sodium will not make you hold water unless you do more sodium than your body's used to. Once you pass that, your normal threshold. So however much sodium you take in per day, your body kind of gets used to. It says, okay, this is our normal sodium amount. And then as soon as you get past that, and as soon as you go to like, let's say you do double it because you ate a pizza or whatever, then you get a really rapid increase of water retention. Your body says, whoa, this is more sodium than I need to. There's a hormone that fires off and it makes you retain water. That is where the initial rebound happens, and then that's where usually it sticks around for a little while with people. You'll talk about, maybe a week or so before that water starts leaving. But the problem is during that week, people keep eating, and then it just keeps building and building and building, and they get more water retention. And then you're very susceptible to gaining body fat back at a very rapid rate too. So it's water retention, it's body fat back, it's maybe you haven't eaten anything at all besides clean food, tilapia and whatever, broccoli for 16 weeks. As soon as you introduce something like pizza or gluten, dairy, that type of thing, things that haven't been in your system, you're going to get a lot of like intestinal distress, you're going to get distension, you're going to get, again, water retention from these foods that you haven't been used to eating. Your body's highly sensitive to them. So there's a lot of reasons for it, but just so you guys do know for sure, a lot of the reason is body fat. It's not necessarily just water. So it's people you can store body fat very rapidly at that point. You're very sensitive to storing body fat. So just be aware. Post-show, if you're going to do a cheat meal, I say do it, but do watch your sodium content. I definitely like people watching their sodium content with that post-show refeed because it gives you a better understanding of how much of it is actually fat and how much is actually water. The problem is like if you do that for like 3 weeks and you're holding a bunch of water, you're holding a bunch of water, you don't really give the body fat any notice. You're kind of like, oh, it's just water, and then you realize a month later you're like, oh wait, 15 pounds of this is fat.
Yeah, this water's not leaving.
This water's not going anywhere. So I generally say, hey, introduce it slowly, start raising it slowly, so you don't have that big effect. Anyway, so
would you also say that when you say try to be aware of your sodium intake post-show so that you don't, retain water or anything, do you think that also would apply to people that, like me, that have sodium leading up to the show? Because I feel like that's one of the reasans why I didn't rebound is because I'm like, hot sauce, sodium, like seasonings, like I don't cut the salt. And I know that in the past when I, way before I even met you, when I did a peak week and I would cut my sodium, like I would eat anything and even a piece of pizza and it would just be like, whoa, my ankles are like huge. But I feel like since I've been eating sodium, or consuming sodium I should say, throughout this whole prep, even up to the show, that it wasn't anything different, I guess.
Yeah, the impact difference is, pretty negligible. If you're eating, let's say, 3,000 milligrams of sodium a day, and then you go and you eat, you don't eat that much the day of the show, right? And then you have a piece of pizza and you have 4,000 milligrams that day. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not that big of a difference. It's only 30% more than normal, right? But if you went from like no sodium to 4,000 milligrams with pizza, right? Well, now you're having yourself quite a bit. And most people are not going to do one piece of pizza, 2 pieces of pizza. They're going to do a whole thing, right? So that's the difference of percentage is really the difference there. You're not having a huge increase of sodium because you're already having sodium. Your body's already used to eating some sodium. Mm-hmm. So that's the same thing with like keeping your calories high as you can in a prep, and then leaving and then finishing the prep and then going back to a little bit higher calories. Not that big of a difference. Someone who did 600 calories and goes to the same calorie threshold, now that's a huge amount of increase of calories percentage-wise, right? So they will likely store more body fat because they're probably more adapted from that lower intake that they've had the whole time. Same. So definitely part of it.
Yeah. So I think a few other reasons why I didn't rebound after the show, which I checked in with Coach Adam like right when I got back the day after, and I was like, oh my gosh, look, and he's like, oh, you look good for like having all these flights and delays and lack of sleep. So gotta put that out there too. Holy lack of sleep. Oh my gosh. I was so sleep deprived. All these flights, all these delays, you'd think that I would have like at least had a little bit of swollen ankles or something, but I really didn't. I mean, maybe a very slight amount in my abs, you could see, very slight. But I definitely was like surprised myself. And I would say that I did a few things to kind of prevent that. So the biggest mistake people will make after a show is like, kind of like what you touched on, is that cheat meal scenario, right?
Yeah.
It tastes good, that burger and fries or whatever, that cheesecake. But you know what? Sometimes you pay the price afterwards for it because you get the swelling because your body hasn't had these foods in a while. Maybe it was like gluten in the hamburger bun or whatever. It's just like these foods. It's like, I haven't seen you guys in a long time, you little glutens. You little glutens, who are you? Who are you? But no, for real, like, so after the show, I actually went out with Anya and I had chicken marsala, which was like a chicken with mushrooms on top, with asparagus and broccoli and like one piece of bread and I think a protein bar.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then backstage I did have one small cookie because I was starving and I didn't bring my rice cakes with me. It's like one of those situations too. It's like I should have brought them, but I was like, oh, okay, I go on at 7, but it wasn't at 7. It was like 9, but my fault. Anyway, so the point is I didn't go too crazy afterwards. And I was very satisfied with that meal, actually. I was like, you know what, I'm cool with it. I don't need to force feed myself. I think a lot of people have that like mentality, like I'm allowed to have a cheat meal now, so I'm just going to go crazy because who knows when I can have another one.
Yeah.
Or I deserve this, you know, because I prepped so long, so I deserve to have whatever I want. Even to the point of being overly full, which I hate that feeling, which I think is another reason that helped me too, is I hate the feeling of being full. Like, I like to be a little bit under full. I hate being bloated. I hate waking up the next day and your stomach is still like out, like, oh, I like my food to be passed through and digested completely. So I think that's why I graze sometimes, is because I prefer to do small things throughout the day rather than like a big, like heavy meal. So I did that. And then also the day after the show, I drank a lot of fluids, okay? And I don't cut water. I don't cut water for a show. But on show day, it's pretty much inevitable that you're not going to be drinking as much water as usual. So I usually try to drink a gallon of water a day, but stage day, probably not going to happen because you competitors know you don't want to be peeing with that tan, okay? It's dangerous territory. So you don't want to be peeing with that tan, and also like you don't want to be like loaded with a whole bunch of water. You want the smallest little waistline possible. So I will drink a gallon of water day before a show, but on show day, it's kind of just like sip throughout the day kind of thing, and I know I'm not getting a gallon. So I need to make sure I make up for that, like when I get off stage, and then after, the day after, drink my fluids, and just, you know, chug, 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 water. Water's your friend. So I think that's another reason why. Like I mentioned, I did have those airport snacks. They didn't seem to affect me. I had the beef jerky, I had nuts, I had protein bars. This was Easter Sunday, so like all the restaurants were like closed because it was getting so late that the only thing open was like that Newport News convenience thing. So I was like, well, what can you do? I'm starving. Yeah. Beef jerky, protein bars, walnuts, almonds, all that. So I was in a pinch. So I just did that, and I know I had probably a bit of sodium there, but like I said, I've been using sodium throughout my prep, so it wasn't, you know, it wasn't really anything different, maybe a different source of food, but it didn't really impact my body so much. So I think I handled it well, and then as soon as I got home, right back on that diet, okay? I think it's a slippery slope sometimes whenever you have that cheat meal and then your body and your taste buds is just like, oh, that's what the good food tastes like. Oh, and then it's a slippery slope because then you're just like, you want more and more. And some people do the going out for breakfast after a show, which, let me clarify one last time. This is only applying if you're doing like a show-to-show thing. Like, we're not talking like if your next show is in 6 months. It's not what we're saying. I'm saying like if you're literally going to compete the next week or maybe even 2 weeks. So that's just my helpful tips for you guys. And like, you know, it's definitely possible to get back on it. Like, you just kind of have to draw the line like, nope, I got to start prep right back at it.
Yeah.
Right back as usual, right back on that routine. Do cardio in the morning, do your same workouts. You might be jet lagged, you might be feeling like poo-poo, but you got to do it.
Yeah. I'm the opposite. I'm actually like, yeah, you should really not go crazy even if you're not competing like after, just because I know the price people pay. And the problem is that, and I always say this too, so it's like people are hearing it again, but the problem is like once you start it, it's really hard to turn off. You know, I've had like for example, I had my ex-girlfriend lived in Florida, and then she came down to Colorado and she competed, and she was like, oh, I got to try the voodoo donuts, and I was like, all right. But she couldn't decide on like which one, right? So she was like, let's just get a bunch and I'll just have like a bite of each and we'll save some for my dad and stuff, right? And I was like, all right, whatever, you know, what are you gonna say? You know, she just did a show. So we get like these crazy voodoo donuts, they're huge voodoo donuts. All these different the craziest ones, of course, because she's tourist, she never saw them before. And we go back, we give one to her dad. Her dad picks one. She has one. I had a half a glaze. I was like, I just want a glaze. They don't have half. That's always me. I'm like super basic. I get a bite of it, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. I got what I needed.
They should call you Vanilla Bonilla.
The Manila folder. Manila Vanilla.
Even though that's not how you pronounce his last name. FY, it's Bonilla.
Yeah.
But it looks like vanilla.
I know, right? I never correct anyone. I don't care. So what happens is she had her donut, right? And then obviously she was staying with me. And then like at night she had the next donut. And then the next, and I came downstairs the next morning and I was like, oh, maybe I'll have the other half of my glaze. That was gone. Everything was gone. So there was I don't know, not every one of them was gone, but most of them were gone. I would say like 8 of them were gone. Like, and the thing is, if that wasn't there, and you know, then that'd be it. Buy one and be done with it. Just buy one, you know, because no one has the restraint.
Yes.
And this girl is dedicated, you know. So, you know, once that time-based deadline turns off, like something switches. And I saw a girl who we had a show here in Vegas. Was it last weekend? No, it was 2 weekends ago. We had a show in Vegas. And this girl's was already up like 15 pounds. And she works so hard. I saw her all the time. She was doing posing and stuff. And I was like, man, as soon as it gets a hold of you, you know. But it's like one of those things, your first time show, whatever.
Yeah,
People
I think we've all done one of these.
I've done it.
Yeah.
And I try to put it out there, but I've done it too. I've been an idiot and put on, you know, literally I've lost 16 weeks of progress in probably 3 weeks before, if not faster. Like I would say, yeah. And I was like, and then at 3 week marker, you sit there and you're like, gosh, I just wasted so much effort and time, you know, like, why did I really do that? And like, you just sit there like sick of yourself. Like you're just like disgusted at yourself. You're just like, it's not about the body fat because you're like, I can lose it again, but it's like the time and the effort that took. I just threw, you know, my mornings away. I threw my, you know, like all this stuff. Like it's all gone, you know, it's like so fast, you know? So anyway, just take it from 2 people that have done it before. You regret it once you get there.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing because your mind is saying you deserve this. You worked so hard. Take some time off. Eat whatever you want. Go crazy. You know, I get it, right? You did work hard, but what you have to realize is your body worked so hard for you. You better treat it right. I'm not saying you can never have a treat again. That's not what I'm saying. But like, you got to ease into it. If you're going into off season, you got to ease into it.
Yeah.
You can't just go full on. I'm eating whatever I want all day, every day. Like, be kind to your body. It worked so hard for you. You're not doing it any justice by just giving it all these empty calories and excess amounts of fats and sugars. Like, you're not doing it any good, really. And it's like you mentioned, when you're post show, especially, you're like a calorie sponge. Your body is just like once it's just gonna soak all these calories, you know. So just be careful. I mean, be very, very careful. I think another mistake a lot of competitors do, and I see it all the time, even with the pros, they will keep like donuts or a whole cake or cupcake tray in their hotel room. Like, yeah, this is for after I finish the show. Yeah, that's sitting there. You think you're just gonna have one? You know, I think a lot of people bring this junk food like they're never going to have it again. Like, you can have it. Like, it will be there tomorrow after the show if you want to go to Starbucks and get a pastry.
And they'll still sell it at the grocery store.
They're still going to sell it. It's like,
you know. Buy all of them from everywhere.
Yeah, so. And I see it backstage too, like a bag of candy and stuff. Like, it kind of, I'm like, well, you know, bring one bag of M&Ms maybe. If that's your carb up or however your coach has you do it. I mean, we don't do that, but if that's it, bring one. Don't bring a whole freaking family size.
Yeah, because they're going to be gone.
Yes. And you think you're sharing with people, and they might share with you, but it's going to be more you than anything. And I think it's just, you're asking for it.
Yeah, they'll take a nibble, and then you get the rest. It's always how it happens. So anyway, you guys do what's best for you. I'm a fan of staying lean because of how hard it is and how easy it is to gain, how hard it is to get lean, and how easy it is to lose it. It's especially in that initial phase. Yeah. So anyway, going into our prolonged peak week now and why we did what we're doing and I'd say one of the first things I think is important is that and Ashley's really game for this, and which is really cool that Ashley is game for it. But Ashley at the last show, she was like, okay, what do we need to change like right away? and we're like, okay, we use that show as a kind of like an education for us, like learning. Okay, what do we need to do? Let's figure it out. Let's try new things. Let's go. If you're not, I say to everyone, if you're second place or lower in the world, so everyone besides one person, you should be changing it up and figuring out how to get to the next level. If you're number one, keep it there. You know, that's pretty simple. You just status quo. That's it. You're the current champ. So everyone else, make improvements, try new things, take some risks. You know, and so at this stage, this time, what we're going to do is, one, we're going to come in a tiny bit tighter, but we're also going to come in fuller, and we are doing basically what we did for the last 9 days or so is we leaned out quite a bit. We basically have been doing very low carb, like no carb basically, and then she's going to reload today, tomorrow, and possibly Thursday, which is, we usually go really conservative on the carbs because she's so bubbly already. But we're trying to give the judges something a little different to look at this time, and we're going to see how it goes. So we both aren't 100% sure of how the end result's going to be, but based on the previous stuff, I know she's not going to spill like crazy because we've done so many peaks before. This is a definitely more aggressive one. So it's a little different. I don't know how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, so the peak week that I did 2 weeks ago was the totally different scenario. I was not lean enough at that time, and I had the hardest peak week ever 2 weeks ago, and it was my fault. My fault only. It's nothing that I can blame anybody else for. It's just I wasn't able to fully get myself 100% in the zone. And I know I've talked about this a few times in the podcast, in previous episodes, but for some reason, I wasn't able to get 100%. I'm so good at staying 95% all year round, and that's why you see me lean all the time. But to push yourself that extra 5%, to get stage lean, was so hard for me this time, you know? So what happened was, that caused me to have a really tough peak week, and probably the toughest, hopefully I'll ever have, ever again, because I don't want to do it ever again. I was miserable. So we don't always have hard peak weeks like that. I was doing quite a bit of cardio. I was cutting carbs and fats just to kind of get to the bare minimum until the last few days when we can, add some more in. But I eventually got to where I needed to be conditioning wise for sure, but it was tough. And that is a difference from this one. For this one, I'm just kind of maintaining now. So I got to where I need to be. I didn't go crazy after the show, and I'm able to have the privilege to maintain. And not only maintain, but bring more food in even towards the end of the week, which starting now actually. So it's always more mentally relaxing to be able to maintain or even fill out into a show rather than cutting. Because not only is it hard on your body to be in that position where you're oh, I still got some fat to lose, and tighten, blah, 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 and not knowing if you're going to be there in time versus knowing I'm here, I just got to take it easy now, So it's much better mentally and physically. However, I was depleting a little bit after I got back from Pittsburgh, so that we can add these carbs in starting today. So that's nice. I was kind of low on energy.
Yeah.
I was kind of low on energy last week. But it's coming back. I just find that in peak weeks like this, I just kind of crash sometimes at noon, and then morning's always good. And I crash at noon. And then I got energy again. But definitely not as bad as 2 weeks ago prep,
Yeah.
So I know that with these extra calories and these carbs, I'm going to be feeling even better, starting tomorrow, probably once they kick in. And I will say, you mentioned, I don't usually do a carb up, or if it's very subtle carb up, if anything. And carbs, they kind of scare me. They kind of do. Because I'm always a low carb girl. That's my dieting preference. But I think I'm so willing to try this one because I actually feel rare occasion, I feel oh wow, I hope I'm not getting too lean now.
Yeah.
I woke up today, I'm oh my goodness, am I too lean? And I know half of that is my competitor brain, especially when you get close to a show, you're am I lean? Am I not lean enough? Do I got body fat to lose, or what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's good to have a second pair of eyes yourself that can be no, you're fine. Don't Don't worry. So, that's I think a very common thing, especially during peak week. And I'm sure you get like a lot of messages like from girls that are competing in the week to come, and they're like, oh my gosh, did I put on weight? Or, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Kind of like I'm doing, but more like subtle about it. But I just kind of vent to you about everything because I'm so close with you. But, I think that's something to talk about too, is like that competitor brain. And my eyes aren't necessarily your eyes right now, because I'm like, kind of focused on the show and like concerned about like how I'm going to present myself, The
analysis paralysis, where you're like overthinking and overthinking. Everyone overthinks it. So yeah, that's the thing. You need a good pair of eyes. So that's I would say more than anything, like when you have a coach, that is like what you're paying for, is their eyes. I would say, gosh, I think it's such an important factor, because that's the one thing that really separates a lot of guys is, and I talk about it all the time, like you could have the smartest, most educated guy, and he has no application at this level, right? He can't figure it out. And he'll tell you, oh, well, this is why, and this, just do IFYM, it should work, the science and this and that. And then they can't see straight when it comes to like, who's lean enough?
Is that a pun against me?
That's not a pun against you.
That's definitely
someone said so.
No.
Crooked eye.
Dude, listen. That in reference to my double vision, sometimes my eye migrates in.
Yes, it's been good for a year though. But that's what you pay for. So like when you're looking at someone to know when they're too lean and know when they're right and know when they're too soft, that's like 90% of things, because then it becomes really easy at that point if you know what, like, oh hey, she's too lean, okay, carb her up, whatever. Hey, she's actually flat, carb her up, right? So like that's what it is. So having a second pair of eyes is pretty critical. And you could do that with people coaches at the gym, coaches that you know of. You could send in physique assessment pictures. I do physique assessments for people too. Generally post show, I like to do those the most. And then and so this time we're like, okay, she's definitely, like right now you're bordering on too lean. You're definitely bordering on too lean. But even now it wouldn't be like they wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, she's so lean. It's just you're bordering on too lean. There's a range in bikini that's acceptable.
I think I'll always be one of those that look better on the border anyway.
Yeah, and that's basically what they always say too. Is like,
don't bring her leaner.
Yeah, don't bring her any tighter. I think she's right. And they're always like, oh, she's almost too tight, but she's not. Like, just keep her right there. Like it's always like one of those. And then it's like you go just a pound under, and they're like, oh, she's too lean.
Oh yes. And then if I'm a little bit softer, like Olympia, I was too soft. Yeah. So like. I think it's funny because like a lot of people will be like, you should try coming in a little softer, I'm like, oh, believe me.
We've tried
Twice. 2 times. No, actually 3 times.
3, yeah.
Japan was one. What was it, that show in 2018, Sioux Falls?
Oh,
and then
Sioux
Olympia.
Falls. Sioux Falls and Olympia.
And they were not my best
looks. I forgot about Sioux Falls.
They were not my best looks.
Yeah,
so.
and you get hit harder than most when you're just a little off. Like, usually people are dropping one spot, so they'll knock you down. They don't care. They're just like, oh, she's soft.
It's it's so volatile in bikini. Yeah, it's like just a little bit too much or not enough.
Yeah, Japan, they were like, oh, you guys just went too much. And I was like, she's literally 2 pounds heavier and very close to the last time. Like, very close. But they're like, oh, it's too much. And I'm like, man, we can look like that in about 40 hours. It wasn't too much, but yeah, that's the price you pay when you're. Well, that's a good thing. The good thing about being known is we know what they want from you. Yeah. But the bad thing about being known is if it's anything but that.
It's that little, like I got like a 16-ounce window.
Dude, the margin is
16 ounces.
It's grams.
That's like
it's like 100 grams.
Is a bottle or a can of pop, is that 8 ounces or 16?
Can's 12 ounces.
12. So about a can.
About a can.
That's my
margin of error.
That's my margin of error.
It's so crazy. It's definitely hard.
Though I will say as well, like I think it's very interesting. Like we mentioned, I'm one of those girls that I'm going to have to always be on the board of being like, is she too lean or is she not lean enough, or is she almost too lean? Because even like at the Olympia, like we've discussed before, I was like in other competitors' standards, I wouldn't be too soft. But my standards they have for me, I was too soft. Yeah. So I was by no means like the softest one at the top 10 for sure. No. It was just for me, that was soft for me personally. So we're all different. We all carry it differently. I tend to not pop as much. I tend to kind of just, I don't know, just look meh. So.
Yeah, so anyway, so this show, this will be a fun one. It's exciting to try a little bit different thing. And this is a progressive approach we're trying. So we're like, well, if this works really good this time, then maybe we could push it harder the next time. We'll see. So
I'm not coming in softer, but we're coming in fuller. So there is a little bit of difference. If you want to kind of explain difference between softer and fuller, because sometimes I'm even like, I kind of get it. Sometimes I don't even understand the difference between softer and fuller.
You know what? The judges make this really hard on the coaches and on the athletes. And it's really, I really wish the judges, and if you're a judge out there and you hear this, please use this verbiage versus the ones you've been using. Okay. So let's get that out there. When a judge says you need to be fuller, okay, that doesn't mean you're flat. A judge says you need to be, so full means two things. Full means that you are flat and you need to eat carbs to fill out your frame and fill out the muscles, right? Because you're flat. Usually when a judge says, now a judge doesn't know if you're flat or not unless they know what your body looked like before. So if you're an amateur level competitor and you ask a judge, hey, what do I need to do? And then it's, oh, you need to fill out your frame a little bit. You need to fill out a little bit more. The competitor thinks, oh, that means I was flat. Then they go and they tell their coach, the judge said I was flat. And I'm like, wait, did the judge say you're flat? Because they don't even know what you looked like. So how do they have a reference to know if you're flat or not? So, well, he said I needed to fill out more, so I needed more carbs. Did he say you needed more carbs, or did he say you needed to fill out more? Well, he just said I wanted to be fuller. Okay, well, that means something different. Just so you know, that means something different than carb reloading, right? So, could it be carb reloading? Possibly. I was talking to Sandy the other day, and she was like, I was talking to one coach, and the girl, I didn't realize who the girl was on stage. It was 2 weeks later, and she looked so much more muscular. And I told the coach, she needs to fill out her frame more. But she said it in a way like muscle. She said, you need to fill out your frame more. She needs more muscle. She told the coach that. So the coach had 2 weeks to the next show. He carved his girl up a little bit more. And then Sandy didn't recognize the girl. And then said, and then she told me she was talking to Tyler. And she was like, hey, that's the girl from a couple weeks ago. We said needed more muscle, needed to fill out her frame more. But all the coach did was give her more carbs. So there's different ways. It's confusing. So if a judge tells you you need to fill out your frame more, most likely, unless they know who you are and they know what you looked like prior, they are most likely saying you need to fill out your frame, as in you need more muscle to fill out your frame. If a judge knows you really well, seen you compete a bunch of times, and they said, oh, you look flat this time, you look flat, you look stringy, and you need to fill out, well, that's a different fill out, right? So it's confusing because they use the same terminology it's like grams, when they use grams for carbohydrates. Like, I wish they would use a different thing for gram, because then people write back, wait, I'm supposed to have 300 carb reload today, gram carb reload. Do you mean 300 weight, or do you mean 300 macrograms? And I'm like, no, I meant macrograms, not 300 grams of weight, which would be like 60 carbs, of like whatever.
Right.
It's like, it's confusing.
Yeah, I would also think some competitors would also think that filling out means get softer as well. Because if you think about what comes to mind when you think fill out, like let's say you're stringy and you got like striations, and maybe you shouldn't, if you're bikini you definitely shouldn't, right? Little grains or striations or veins. To fill in those little striations, you want to fill it in, fill out. So that's what I would kind of think that too. I was like, well, do you mean like a little bit softer too? But you gave a great analogy of like a balloon, to look like a balloon that's about to bust, right?
Yeah,
that
exactly.
would be the ideal form of filling out for me.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I guess we can go into what we were trying to accomplish with the filling out too. So, all right, so think of your muscle as, this isn't be a good, I guess it wouldn't be a good analogy because the only thing I got is this. So think of it as a sponge, and then throughout peak week, like right now with Ashley, her muscles, we are kind of squeezing the sponge. We've been doing it for 9 days or so, squeezing the sponge, getting her carbs low. She even did a high rep workout, doing her cardio, and now her sponge is 50%, 40% full of water. Well, we're trying to load that sponge to 90%, 95% full of water, not 100% full of water, or she's going to be dripping water out, right? And if we can get that sponge 90% full of water, 95% full of water without it dripping out, well, then we're going to get that sponge more dense, we're going to get it more full, It's gonna be heavier, right? It's gonna look more. It's gonna be the dense as a sponge can be. Now, it's not a great analogy because the sponge would, if it's a dry sponge all the way dry, I guess it does get bigger. So I guess, yeah, we can use that because it's getting bigger too. The sponge is going to get a little bigger too. So because she has more glucose stored in her muscle and as glycogen, it's going to actually have more size to it. So when you store carbohydrates in your muscle, you actually store 2.7 grams of water for every gram of glucose is stored in the muscle. So you got to remember, you're storing more water and more glucose in the muscle. Now, this is intracellular fluids, right? So it's in the muscle, not extracellular. So what we're trying to avoid is the extracellular fluids building up. So basically, if you spill over, so if your carbohydrates are not all in the cell, your body couldn't get them all in the cell, and it's just kind of waiting outside the cell, well, that water is still attached to that glucose, and that's when you're going to be holding a little bit of water, where you see people get softer or whatnot. It's because they call it spilled over, where all the carbs didn't get into the muscle. That's when you got the sponge and you went to 100% and now water's dripping out of it. Well, water's dripping out of it, you look a little softer, and it's going to be hard to correct. So one of the things, though, that we do is we do what we call a front load. I'm never, even with Ashley, and I know her body super well, even with Ashley, I don't do back loads because it's an unpredictable result. Like, if you give Ashley, let's say we're like, hey, we're going to keep you flat and we're going to really make you pop on Saturday, and we're just going to wait till Friday to give you all your carbs. And then we're going to hope that you don't spill over by Saturday morning. We're going to hope that you're as full as you can be. And because of that, you're going to get, we're going to get the best effect if we just do a one-day load. I personally do think the best effect is a back load, like Thursday, Friday, like loading super hard. The problem is that so many things happen in so many different scenarios with carb reloads that you have no time to correct, though. If you do that on Thursday and Friday, even if you know the person really well, still sometimes things happen where they hold a lot of water, or they go in that extra, that we talked about, the sponge gets too full and they're dripping water, right? So I'm a fan of doing like a heavier load on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Thursday, and then Friday, I kind of like try to keep it pretty minimal. Like, that's the thing, is on Friday and Saturday, like, I don't really want to be having them do too much guesswork. I want to just keep their waistline tight. I want to keep the food kind of minimal. And if they're full already, then we just need to maintain that. It doesn't need a lot of food, and that way we can get their waistline smaller by having that Friday being light in food. So, and then then you wake up and you don't have to worry about it, You don't have to wake up and worry, oh, I wonder if I'm going to be full or not. Of course you're full. You've been full for 4 days. Like, you're going to be full. Don't worry about it. And it's like a really easy thing. You don't have to like wake up at 4 a.m., wonder how many carbs you need to eat, hope you time it right. Like, it's not a whole thing. It's just be full. Walk on stage. Just walk on stage. It's super simple. And your waistline's small. You don't have to worry about your stomach being distended because you had pancakes the morning of the show.
Yeah,
things like
that's another thing we need to go into. For show day, that's like a big thing for people, right? For me, the technique is eat a little amount of food before you go on stage. Like, things that are easy to digest, like a rice cake, coconut oil usually is my go-to. But I'm not a fan of like the whole pancakes, or some people even do like steak and asparagus. I'm like, that's not going to digest in time. That's not going to do any justice. Just think of this. Show day, basically, let's be honest, the hay's in the barn for the most part. Okay? Yeah. Steak, asparagus, it's not like you're going to be like putting on muscle or anything like that. I mean, especially if it's like a morning time. Maybe more so like in the afternoon after prejudging, but assuming your prejudging is like 9, I wouldn't do that personally, because it's just going to make your stomach distend out a little bit, and you got to have the smallest little waist possible on stage day, and it's not really going to do anything but sit there, it's not going to digest in 2 hours.
I would say one of the bigger factors in bodybuilders on stage when their guts get blown out, one, we already talked about it in the last episode, it's not a roid gut, it's a food gut, but 2, what happens a lot of times is they load so hard like the night before and the morning of, trying to fill out even more, that they lose some cuts. They always look better on like Thursday, and then on Friday, Saturday, they mess everything up. They do pancakes in the morning to justify filling out. They're like, oh, I'm just going to fill out. But really, they're just justifying the fat kid inside of them, like, because they want to eat pancakes. That's what it is. It's not like pancakes are this science like perfect food to fill out your frame. The pancakes taste good, and you've been not eating for 16 weeks, and you want to loosen up a little bit, and you want to justify it with saying it's going to help you fill out. The reality is that those pancakes are likely not going to be digested by the time you're on stage. They're likely going to be sitting in your stomach still for hours later. You have gluten in the pancakes, which is something you haven't eaten in a long time, and you're going to be distending your waistline out and making your shape look worse, because if you gain an inch on your waistline from a big meal, your shoulders didn't get any bigger, so it's not like you're getting a better ratio. You know, your waistline's now 1 inch bigger, so your shoulders look 1 inch smaller, right? That's how it goes. So your waistline, if it's tiny, your shoulders look bigger. That's just the truth of it. Yeah. So, one, eat foods that your body will agree with. If you're doing something totally outside of what you've been doing for your diet, understand that that's a risk, and it's an unpredictable risk at that. So, if I have someone cutting their foods towards the end of the week, usually I'll have them do like gluten-free, dairy-free, artificial sweetener-free, and it's super, super clean at the end. Do you need to do all those things? I don't know, but it's a week, and it's definitely not bad for you to not do those things, so just don't do it. That's what I just tell everyone.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's 1% better, who cares? It's 1%. That might be the 1% it takes to beat someone. This is a sport. It's not, just your mom's diet to lose 10 pounds for the family vacation. This is a sport, And I think we lose sight of that sometimes. People are like, oh, just lifestyle, this, that. I'm like, this is not that. This is just something different. So, it's uncomfortable. But if you've been doing that for, let's say, 4 weeks, you've been eating super clean, even a week eating super clean, and then you introduce these crazy foods that you haven't had any of them for a long time, yes, there's likely going to be some adverse reaction, and yes, likely it'll be in the waistline, because that's where everything happens. You're going to have distension. You're going to maybe have some water retention. You're going to have, you're just not going to be regular that day, maybe holding more poo. So, it's not a good idea to mix things up that crazy at the end. Throwing in more carbs, that's not crazy. That's the same carbs we've been eating. The same ones we eat before, the same ones she's eating her whole life. It's just going to be rice and rice cakes and things like that. It's super, super easy.
Just easy to digest. So, it's not going to just sit there, Rice cakes are just a lot of air.
Yeah.
But it keeps your taste buds entertained anyway. I mean, I guess you could even do a honey and coconut oil or something too.
Yeah.
But I'm just not a fan of things that take up a lot of space on show day on the stomach, because it's really, But I totally understand, after prejudging, if you're hungry or something, let's be honest, especially for bikini, prejudging is where it really matters. Finals is kind of just don't mess up. But, so I don't know, that's my take on it. But I see a lot of people do some crazy stuff with donuts even on show day, or chocolate or candy. I'm like, ooh.
It's just they want to. There's no reason for it scientifically, right? Because if you could get carbs and sugar from anywhere, and the best thing to do if you're really trying to be your best, M&Ms probably aren't the thing, You're okay, how many grams of sugar and fat do I need from these M&Ms? Okay, can I replicate that in a easier digesting, low volume way? Yeah, easily, very easily. Coconut oil and a little bit of some type of sugar that's liquid based and it's low volume.
Honey?
And yeah, there you go. And then, and that would be easy digesting, and you wouldn't have any risk, right? There's ways of doing it. And but it's sometimes you hear, it's funny because you hear these coaches and they'll be like, yeah, after prejudging, get a burger and fries, a Diet Coke. And I'm like, what? Hold on a second. Let's think about this for a second. One, you're saying increase sodium dramatically, more than they have in the last month from the fries. Two, you're saying introduce gluten, which they haven't had this entire prep. Three, you're introducing back in artificial sweeteners prior to judging at the end. So if this is better for that athlete, so if they're going to look better after this meal, one, why didn't you do it before prejudging when it mattered? And two, if it's not better for the athlete, why are you doing it at all? Answer those questions, right? Because they're both very valid arguments, right? And it's it doesn't make any sense, because one, if you look better after that meal, you should have had it prior to judging when it actually mattered, prejudging. And if you look worse, and if you're taking risk for just to satisfy something for the night show, I guess I don't know what the reason would be. why would you just not wait till after the night show to be done and not look your best? It just doesn't make any sense. There's nothing logical about that scenario where someone says, eat a burger and fries after judging. Because if you need to be fuller, well, then you messed up because you should have been fuller at judging. And if you needed that meal, it doesn't make, if the meal's taking a risk, it makes you look worse, then why are you doing it before the show's over?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
I would say even hypothetically, if it made my muscles fuller, which it's not, I would not want to sacrifice that for my waistline. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My waistline would not look the same after a burger and fries. And a Diet Coke. No.
I never understood it. It's the weirdest thing, right? Because it's after judging too, and they'll be clean all the way to it. And the same thing they do it like the day before the show too, and it's like, do you really need that risk?
You better hope you poop in the morning.
It's like you could just get the carbs and fats and then tell them, I will have people do when they're super flat, I'll have them do fries sometimes the week of, but we're talking a week out, do 2 things of fries because I can calculate the fat. The extra sodium back in that day will ensure that they're not going to be sodium sensitive 5 days later, 6 days later, but the day before the show, it's really risky, That's just an easy way to get in some extra calories and fats, and it helps them mentally, for that last week or something. But the day before the show, there's no risks like that. It's just too risky, There's no predictor. You can't predict the result. If they mess up and they're water retentive for 2 days, 3 days after that, 5 days before the show, who cares? It's not a big deal. It'll go away. So anyway, that's my take on it. It's one of those things that I hope people think about logically, and then just don't mess up 16 weeks of work for them, just to satisfy some hunger issues.
Right. It's like you've waited this long, you might as well wait a little bit longer.
Yeah. So now with this, I think the lesson for everyone here today too is, no matter where you're at in your career, be a student of the game. Be willing to learn, willing to make improvements, willing to take some risks. And I think that you're really good at that. You're really good at getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's what you're saying? Because
I was uncomfortable when you tell me all these carbs, but I'm accepting them.
Yeah. I'm glad that today you woke up and you're like, I think I'm too lean, because that puts us in the right mental space for you to have the carbs.
Yeah, I have a little tendon poking out. When I sit on the toilet, and when I get lean, I'll sit on the toilet, and on the side of my hips, these little tendons poke out. And that's when I know I'm lean. But the other day I freaked out, sent a picture to Adam, and I circled it. And I'm like, oh my God, my little tendon is poking out now when I'm just posing. Oh my, So I'm like, oh man. And I just, my measurements went down pretty much because I'm flattening out just like I'm supposed to. But it's kind of like, wow, I'm getting flat. Oh no. Hopefully it's not too late. But I trust you. Yeah. And I know these carbs are going to do their thing, But I think another point to briefly touch on as well is the training aspect of peak week. So my workouts aren't the same as a typical week of workouts would be. And I think the biggest change right now is my cardio. I'm not allowed to do my Orange Theories.
Yeah. So we took that out of the equation because we're like, hey, let's just take that variable out, because it is a variable we can't really control so well. It's great for because the thing about the Orange Theory is really, really good because it gets her in the zone and she's racing and she's crushing her cardio. The bad thing about it is you can't really progress it. You can't use a progressive overload system, which we tend to use, which is, okay, a progressive overload system would be, in cardio form, would be, hey, she's doing 20 minutes of cardio this week, next week we're going to do 25, next week we're going to do 30, that type of thing. It takes that away from us as an option, so the predictability and the control of that form of cardio becomes very difficult. But at the same time, Ashley's lean enough where we just have to maintain. So it gives us some room because we just have to maintain. But this week I was like, no, let's just do cardio in a way where we can control it. Yeah. We can control the outcome of it. Let's get lean enough. It'll be a different stimulus since that's all you're doing now too. So we switched it up and it worked. Everything's worked, which is really well. It's worked really good. Nothing went backwards. I was actually a little worried about that because I know the intensity at that place is really high.
Right.
And it's always volume versus intensity. So I was like, okay, we're going to have to either really increase the volume or she's going to have to be in the zone for this cardio for it to work. Yeah. Luckily, you got in the zone.
Yes. But we need to say what I'm doing for cardio.
Yes.
So I'm right now doing, today I did 25 minutes of steady state cardio. It was pretty much 30 minutes since I want to say Saturday or whatever. But now I get downgraded to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Up until Thursday, and then after Thursday is relaxation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think tomorrow 15 minutes? Tomorrow's 15.
You said 20, but I'll do. Oh wait, no, you did
15.
say 15.
Yeah.
Sorry, I almost did 5 minutes extra.
So it's pretty minimal now because she's earned it, right? So that's the peak weeks you want. You want to.
Do you want to kind of explain why I'm just doing a little bit to
Yeah.
get the blood pumping and maybe any water retention I might be having? To
Exactly. Yeah.
Push everything through.
So at this point, she's lean enough. So you'll see this a lot, like on my Instagram. You'll see girls like eating a lot of food, not doing any cardio the last week. Because I'd say if someone is 16 weeks out, I say, okay, you're 16 weeks out, but really you're 15 weeks out because that last week, I just want to chill. I want to not do that much cardio. I want to let your body recover. Because if you're letting your body recover a lot during that week and you're not doing that much cardio, you're going to be less likely to have inflammation. You're going to look healthier on stage. You're going to look like you just woke up and just walked on stage that day, which is what the judges always say. No one obviously looks like that. But it's like you're supposed to be like, they're like, we just want them to look healthy and not dieted down and look like they just woke up that day and decided to do a bikini competition. Obviously, you're killing yourself to get there, but the look of it, what they want, the vibrant, relaxed, like healthy look, that helps when we can reduce things and we can eat food going into the show. Mentally, physically, you look better, you glow a little more, you know? So you'll see that a lot. We actually won an overall this weekend with Maria, my client Maria. It's the second time I prepped her, and the show before that, she won the novice overall, and then she got second in the open. And then we did it a little bit more aggressively this time. We loaded harder this time, and we cut her cardio. We ate more food, and she got the overall this weekend, so which is really cool. So same thing happened, and that we're kind of doing with you now. So so the good thing is we reduced the cardio because we are trying to reduce the inflammation, reduce any stress her body has, have her recover 100%. Now, we're not getting rid of it completely because she is having a lot more carbs, and you can store a little bit of water with carbs, so I want her getting some sweat going to keep everything moving, right? So there's some cardio there. And other than that, on Thursday and Friday, there's going to be basically no workout. Let her body fully recover. We're not cutting any sodium. We're not taking any diuretics, not even anything like Expel or anything like that.
Not cutting water either.
Yeah, no water and no cutting water. And then we're just going to eat. You know, the plan is to test out a couple hundred carbs with fats, a good amount of fats today, and then we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. I might just do a bunch tomorrow, who knows? And then we'll go from there.
I love me some fats.
Yeah.
Sunflower seed butter.
But I
It's
think
like my current favorite.
I just think it's important people know, hey, like, just because they got a system, they're not stuck to it. And you know, I would definitely take risks. I do. I'd push it because I want to. If there's a way of doing it better, then why not figure it out? At least you get. The thing is, when you take risks like that and you go more, like let's say, hey, we're basically like tripling your carbs of the last peak week. So when we do that, we find a threshold, right? What's too much? We don't even know what that could be until you try it, right? Yeah. If it doesn't work, we're like, okay, well that was too much. We got to bring it back, right? So, so it's definitely risky, but it's the right, I think it's the right approach for now. I think that it's very calculated still, that it's risky, but it's calculated, and I like that you're open to trying it,
Yeah, I mean, heck.
We wanted to do a dry run, but the problem is we're doing a show. So like we're like, hey, let's do a dry run. We're like, well, I'm doing this show, and I'm probably gonna maybe I'll do Pittsburgh, and maybe I'll do our dry runs are gonna have to be at the show then because we're competing. So
yeah, I mean, it's just all different. There's and you know what? Even things throw curveballs too. Like sometimes you retain water from flight without even any reason. But
yeah.
Also, like, you get your period on that day, which I won't because I just got my period like yesterday or 2 days ago. Yay, that's why I'm wearing red today for that, like in honor of my period.
You're so dumb.
Because I don't like to wear black. Black's probably the best color, but red, so that's in honor of Mother Nature.
So dumb.
So my ovaries definitely coordinated with me this time, so it'll be over with.
Monochromatic to the next level.
Yeah, of course, monochromatic to the next level. And so I mean that shouldn't be a problem by the time I get on stage. It's only like a problem like the first day or two, so not gonna be a problem. So that's good to know. Adam's gonna be with me at the show. So
yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited to be there.
Even more relaxing, so you can see if I have any frizzies or stick ups in my hair.
Yeah, and Utah.
Pageant mom.
We're gonna be in Utah, which I haven't. When the last time I've been to Utah? I haven't been there in so long. So I'm excited for that. See the venue and all that.
Woot woot.
Yeah, is it an open venue there? Do we know if it's open 100% or is it like a
I don't know. They do have
issue?
live stream though, so I'm
cool.
not sure.
All right, well, I guess at this point, when we release this one, it'll be over.
Yeah,
So
so you
hopefully-
missed the live stream, so
Yeah,
that sucks.
Sorry about that, guys.
That sucks.
Maybe someone recorded it, and you can go to YouTube right now and just check for it. So, I guess is that everything we got for today? I think,
Yeah,
right?
I think so. Thank you guys for listening and watching and tuning in. All the support
Yeah.
and all the love. We love you too. Hey.
Yeah, that's basically it. I don't think there's anything else really.
Oh yes, and if you're looking for okay, so next week, or I shouldn't say next week, but the next episode after this one, we'll be doing more of like an in-depth like judges review, feedback, and all that. So we briefly touched on it today, but we didn't purposely skip it. I was just gonna want to do 2 shows, so it kind of makes more sense. It'll correlate. It'll make sense when you hear it. But anyway, I'm gonna put it on my YouTube channel anyway pretty soon, so it should be out there anyway. The feedback of the judges from the last show. But yeah, until then, you guys are just gonna have to wait.
Yeah. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna post up like a post-show physique assessment of you too, and then like what we tried to do differently. I'll do a little video of that. And so you guys know, if you guys did a show and you have your pictures from the show, I do post-show physique assessments through the website, so you guys can sign up for that if you wanted to do that. I try not to say that too much because I get a lot of them sent in. But yeah, so I love doing a post-show because then you can really see what someone looks like when they're show ready. And then you could tell them, okay, this is what you need to work on for your next show, whatever, that type of thing. It's like a judges feedback like times 10 type of thing. It's like a video of pointing out things. So I do like doing that. I get a lot of people that are where they're in their off season and they'll send pictures, and it's not as useful because they're still showing body fat and it's like you can't see everything. But post show, it's really helpful. So anyway, that's basically what we got for you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and good luck to Ashley.
It'll already be over.
It'll be over.
You know.
And
It's the thought that counts.
It's the thought that counts, yeah. Well, good luck to her the next one because she's going to compete probably
in
in another couple
Pittsburgh.
weeks.
By the time they get to this, my following show would be Pittsburgh.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next time.